So I'll begin by revisiting one or two thoughts that I had touched on in one of our last sessions, which was to acknowledge that through this experience of the COVID crisis and having to stay in and following those orders, that we have been pushed towards, those of us that have not fully awakened, those of us that have not even begun to perceive life in the truth that is in spirit. And that those that need that push are going to be activated to the heart. So the heart center being that space where we are able to hold compassion for others, the ability to forgive, the ability to feel oneness, love for all, for ourselves especially. And so looking at that connection to the heart space, and that those of you that have been working with me for some time have already been aware of the idea, the reality, the truth, that when we come to a heart-centered space, this is where we find that higher dimensional consciousness within ourselves, and then outward in our surroundings, in our world, on our planet. And so when we can come from that place of love, when we can come from that place of knowing that we are connected to the all, we are connected to each other, we are connected to this planet and all sentient beings, then we make mindful choices. We make choices that are not based in ego. We make choices that are not based in fear and greed or power, because we are mindful of how our choices can affect the collective. Our choices can affect our children, our partners, our household, our community. And so that is what we are being pushed towards. I keep being guided to revisit the story of Noah in the Bible. For those of you that are Christian-based, you'd be familiar. For those of you not, Noah's story in the Bible is he is the chosen one of his time to create this ark that at that time the Creator had made a decision to completely decimate the human collective at that time, because of the majority of that collective at that time choosing from a place of ego, creating chaos and spreading death and harm throughout the lands. And so because it was so permeated throughout the entire planet at that time, that mentality, that way of being and existing, that ultimately led to the demise of that human era. And so Noah was chosen to survive, to take all of the creatures of the planet at that time onto the ark, and the ark would then survive the oncoming flood that would completely cover the entire earth. So that Noah at the time was that chosen one that was of the light more than he was of the other side. And so for that reason, he was able to carry on as the light and then begin to pass on those teachings to future generations and his descendants. So the concept is, whether you believe the story is true or not, is that when we are making choices that are not coming from a heart-centered place, this is what leads to destruction. And so getting to that heart space is important right now. And so what came to me as I was preparing for this Sunday's session was that in order to come to a place of not only heart-centeredness, but a place of love, what do we need? And that is trust. If we cannot trust, say, for example, a partnership doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partnership, could be friendship, could be family relationships. If we have a hard time or a challenge for whatever reason trusting an individual, then how can we wholly love that person in the way that it's meant to be? That we are open, that we are sharing, that we are willing to participate in one another's lives because we love one another so much. We want to protect, we want to engage, we want to be connected to an individual or group of individuals for that matter. So when trust is broken, that can come from many places throughout our lives, right? It can be trust broken from relationships directly. It can be trust broken from betrayals. It can be trust broken from crossing of boundaries. It can be broken promises. Many, many reasons why one is leaded to distrust. We cannot trust the government and the powers that be, quote unquote. So when we look at trusting, we also can think about how do we trust ourselves? Do we trust ourselves to give our love to others? Do we trust ourselves enough that we love ourselves within who we are? Trusting your judgment and the choices that you make in life. All levels of trust lend itself to allowing yourself to truly embrace true love, offering love, and receiving love, most importantly. Do you allow yourself to receive love? And then finding that balance. What is that balance, and do you have it? Are you giving more love than you're allowing yourself to receive? Or vice versa? Asking yourselves these questions is really important right now. The more we can trust, the less we go into fear. The more we trust, the more we can follow our inner guidance, our inner knowing, or even divine guidance. The more we can trust, the more we can take care of ourselves. So many benefits to being able to trust. And so what I'd like for you to do in this moment is to take a bit of stock. Start to begin to take a look at where you trust, where you don't trust. Look at both sides. For a moment, really be open. Allowing yourself to understand truly and fully the scope of your trust, your capacity of trusting others. and yourself. Where do your weaknesses lie? And where are your strengths? When you have gotten to that place of recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses, then take a look at how that has affected your life, either in your early childhood and forward to the now. Where do you see that those weaknesses in trusting have affected your ability to love? And then from there, where do you find that the trust shifted? Your level of trusting and feeling able to allow yourself to be loved and to love. Where did that shift? Begin to see the correlation between the two. Where do you remember the earliest time that you understood, I can no longer trust this, or I can no longer trust that? Where was that moment in your life that began the change in your thought patterns? And do the review. This is where we process, and we really take a look at reflecting upon those moments in our lives that change us until we decide to change for the better, for our betterment, for our highest good, for our growth and evolution, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. That's the work that we can do right now. That's the work that we can help others to do for themselves. So what I've been understanding, what I've been kind of gathering thoughts about, is that many people have talked about reaching out to people from their past, reconnecting with loved ones that maybe they hadn't communicated with in some time. This experience of crisis has kind of brought people back together in a way to either help heal themselves or to reconnect with something that felt open-ended or incomplete. And if you look at those moments, many of those connections that maybe have come to a separation time, a separation period, or a period of just decline in communication, where it wasn't really spoken, it was just what happened. looking at where that may relate to feelings of not being able to trust. I know that outside of this experience, outside of this particular time, regardless, as we as spiritual seekers move along this journey, there are going to be those experiences where we no longer resonate with a group of people. And we may not as strongly connect with them. And oftentimes what I've understood about those experiences was that there was a level of trust that seemed to no longer be there. Say, for example, a group of people you once knew were kind of, still engaging in those activities that don't really serve one who is evolving, one who is growing out of kind of these third dimensional experiences that are more egoic and somewhat uncomfortable to deal with once you have grown out of that. It's interesting because it kind of really hit me really hard. I don't normally watch this show, but I was guided to watch one of the Kardashian shows. And these group of women are sisters, and it's clear to me as I'm watching this particular episode that one of the sisters especially has really grown away from this celebrity status, wealth, egoic mentality, me kind of experience. And there's this huge altercation between two of the sisters especially. And it was this screaming for help from the sister that is more evolved, that you don't understand me. You judge me. You see me because I'm different as something that's wrong and opposite of what you're doing. And why is that wrong? If I don't want to be in front of a camera, if I don't want to be dressed up and glammed up and makeup all to the nines, why is that so wrong? And they couldn't understand it, until she really, really was able to communicate it, because she didn't even really know that she is evolving really on a spiritual level. And she can't really explain it. She just knows that it's causing disruption between in the dynamics of the sisterhood that they once shared. She's far removed from what they engage in and what they enjoy about their lives. And I know that I've had this personal experience within my own family where I've had to separate myself and disconnect because there was this feeling of judgment and not being able to trust that I could be myself within my own family. And I've often heard it within the clients that I work with, that as we grow through this experience, we simply don't want to engage in these other worldly activities. And sometimes those people will look upon you as if there's something wrong with that. And that can create distrust. That can create an inability to allow yourself to really love them the way that you would like to love them. But you feel like you can't, because as soon as you step in, you're nearly attacked for it. So this is just one example, of how this correlation between trust and love can show up and present itself for those of us that are spiritually awakening or awakened. There's a shift that happens organically. It just does. It just happens. And either you will have those people in your life that will simply accept it and say, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I accept you no matter how much you change. And then there will be others that will not be so accepting because they're just not there yet. And that's okay too, because some of this experience is designed so that we are tested along the way and we are challenged by what is it that we really want for ourselves. Do we want truth and surrounding ourselves with people that can offer that to us? Or do we want to stay in a place where we're stuck in this model or this role that everyone says you're supposed to play while being unhappy? So ultimately, the relationship between trust and love is really, really big. It's a big connection. And so if we cannot trust, it makes it that much more challenging to truly love. So the more that we can go within, the more that we can really go in and take that stock that I've just guided you through, the more that we can review where the lack of trust began, the more we can get to a place of really, truly loving. And again, these are many different levels of trust and many different levels of love. This is love in romantic partnership, love in friendship, love in business, love in community, love for animals, love for the planet. So many layers that trust and love will affect in all of our lives. But the more we can really look at those layers, the more we can come into that heart-centered space authentically. It's not forced. It's not a habit or a discipline. It simply is your nature. It is part of who you are as a being on this planet, to be here to love authentically. So let's take a moment, and I'd like for you to take another look. This time, let's look at love, okay? We'll take the steps that we took with trust and simply look at, where do you feel a hindrance in allowing yourself to be open to receiving love and offering love? And begin to look at that. Where are your weaknesses and where are your strengths? And please be gentle with this process. You don't have to dig it all up in this moment. You don't have to dig it all up today or this month. This is just at a pace that is balanced, a pace that is right for you right now. And so if it's just one weakness, begin to just work on that and unfold that. As well as with your strengths. And if there's anyone that is feeling emotional right now and you don't know why, that's okay, just let it go. If you need to cry, please do. The most loving thing that you can do for yourself is to allow yourself permission to feel. Because if you can feel, that means your heart is working. Your heart is open. Your heart is active. And so feel. It's okay. And so again, your weaknesses would be, where are you feeling resistance in loving others? It could be with a particular person. It could be a certain situation. It could be your job. It could be you. What are you resistant to loving? Allowing yourself to be completely in love with life. Where are those weaknesses for you? Where are you resistant to allowing love to come into your life? Maybe people are offering you to do things to help you. And you're saying, no, 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 really, it's okay. But you know you need it. That's a love. That's love being shared and offered to you. Love doesn't have to be just affection and loving words. It can be gestures. It can be hugs. It can be touch. It can be compliments. It can be gifts. Now, when you've gotten to that place of understanding your weaknesses, but also understanding your strengths, never forget about knowing what your strengths are, because there's always something good to reflect on. And recognizing those positive aspects of your life, the positive aspects of who you are, is important to keep balance, and to keep confidence in who you are. Now, what do you want more? What do you know when you've taken that stock? What do you know you want to do differently? What is it that you know you want to do better? And keep in mind that sometimes those positive aspects of loving can be to your detriment. For example, the giving too much, whether it's monetarily, materially, affection, love, services. So are there areas, even in the positive aspects of who you are, that could be balanced out a little bit more? There's never too much love per se, but it's relative to how much you are receiving. There always needs to be balance in anything that we do, okay? So remembering that when we are offering so much love, and we may not receive the exchange over time, that can take its toll. Okay. So remembering that and being mindful of that, where are those areas maybe of strength and weaknesses showing up? And looking at those areas if you haven't already. From this place of having taken stock, and when you've gotten to that place of completion, then again, you want to revisit, as we did with the trust, where does that begin for you? Where do you remember the earliest time in your life where those weaknesses showed up in your life? Where is it that the imbalances of the over-loving came in to being? So one thing that comes up as I'm thinking about the over-giving is the need to do so much that somehow that means if I do that, if I do all of this, then maybe I'll get what I need. Maybe I'll get the love that I wished for. Maybe I'll get the attention that I wished for. Maybe I'll get the accolades that I so desire. So that's just one example of why oftentimes we overgive. Where we're compensating because maybe we don't see ourselves as enough. And so we're overcompensating. Because within ourselves, we don't love ourselves enough. Or simply you may not believe that you are enough. And so to overlove and overgive is that seeking that in return. The acceptance, the acknowledgement, that also boils down to love. The human mind perceives that acceptance and awards and rewards, that's someone showing that they love me. It's part of how society programs the human mind. And so oftentimes we think, oh, because I did not get the reward, I must not be lovable. I must not be enough. And there begins the self-programming. The creating in your mind the reality that I must not be enough. Not that someone told you you weren't, but of course that comes through that form as well. sometimes these thought patterns are self-imposed. So really looking at, once you've taken that stock, again, just to review, once you've taken a stock of what that weakness, what those positives and weaknesses are, then looking at where does this begin? So again, this is all to remind ourselves that when we can come to trusting, we can come to true loving. Okay. You could almost say that without trust, you cannot truly love. But it's all relative to your experience. So hopefully out of this time of staying in and people really having nearly no choice but to face these thoughts, these feelings, that you can have this tool to help you along with those processes as they come up for you. And so that's a process that you can translate into any emotion and any aspect of your life that may be coming up for you as well. But more, the biggest thing that came through with teaching about this today is that the more that we are doing the work on our heart and healing the heart, the more there's that ripple effect, right? It's just what happens, whether we consciously understand it or not. When we are working on ourselves as individuals, it just permeates throughout the collective. And inevitably, you will find that you'll start to hear people say, and they'll start talking about their feelings. You'll start to see that reflected back to you. People will start to question more their journey, and you'll start to see that reflected more in your outer reality. So hopefully this helps you guys. Feeling complete in your body, grounded. You can open your eyes when you are comfortable. And that will do it for today's session. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know. You can send me a text or send me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I love you guys. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.